what are your thoughts on just this proliferation of, hey, we're going to send them $64 billion. We're not sending tanks. We're going to send them some tanks. Now we're sending combat aircraft. At what point does Russia say, we're basically at war with the United States?
Yeah, this is tough, and so I've got both a political science major and a longtime student of history and operations professional, intelligence professional. This is really vexing. I think on one hand, I can very confidently make the argument that not stopping Russian aggression in Ukraine has implications for all of Europe, for a free and stable Europe. I believe that indeed the Chinese are watching, and that Taiwan is in the balance. Another discussion about whether the American people are willing to go to global war over Taiwan. Another subject, but right now it is our position to keep a free Taiwan. A relatively free Taiwan. And so I do see the urgency to face the aggression aggressively in Ukraine. It's unfortunate, right? The Cold War we always planned was going to be played out on the plains of the Fulda Gap, and how we were going to stop the Warsaw Pact from getting to the Atlantic Ocean. And that, in a way, it's become a bit of a pseudo proxy war that's being fought in Ukraine. I do think when I see I wonder, I really work to understand the elements of national power at play, the decisions that are made when we show Bradley fighting vehicles being put onto a roll-off ship, when we watch them being unloaded in Europe, when we watch them being transported, towards Poland. And what are we doing? Is that right. Messaging supposed to be pushing Russia to capitulate? What is Putin's motivation? What is the end game for Putin? When he looks at things like what happened to Saddam Hussein or Muammar Gaddafi, what does he think? Is there a scenario here where he retires in his dacha and is very comfortable and lives happily ever after, as the richest man on earth? Yeah. And so there's just a lot of stuff at play here, but I hear you, Nick, and I echo that concern is acute for me. One, we have to face down the aggression because of what it means if we don't. But two, how far do we go and how publicly do we do it, lest it have create a response or an effect that we aren't able to necessarily anticipate or control.
Wow, that's a lot to swallow right there, Keith.
You asked the question, man.
That's a great. Well, it's a great freaking answer. That's what I'm saying. That's a great answer. My thought is, man, you mentioned Saddam and Omar Gaddafi, and obviously Putin is no fool. He's seen what happens if you mess with the United States. And at the same time, those people didn't have nuclear weapons, right? Man, I gotta say, it really scares the Jesus out of me that this guy has nuclear weapons and he might be put in a position where he has no choice but to use them. I hate to predict the future because I don't think anyone can predict the future. But I don't see this ending well for Putin, and I don't see it ending well for anybody. What do you think?
No, it's a really tenuous scenario, and we've become, I think, at the macro levels, we've become a bit numb to it. Right? There were these chest tightening moments, relatively early on, and were we on the brink of tactical nukes being used in Ukraine? And if tactical nukes were used in Ukraine, what was our response going to be? What can use of tactical nukes be tolerated without a significant response. And if there's a significant response, what does that then beget? But let's channel back X number of months where there were these moments, and now there just don't seem to be these moments. It's just like we've moved on, and we're focused on other things, and the ante is getting higher and higher on both sides, and I do think it's a very dangerous moment in history that we ought not to be casual about.
And I'll point out, and I watched the video that you did for Wired, where you're teaching people how to read and analyze satellite imagery. Also say, if you're listening to this or watching it on YouTube, definitely check out that video. Look up Keith Mosbach Wired, how to look at satellite imagery, how to analyze satellite imagery. It's an awesome video. He doesn't go too in depth, and trust me, he could go probably way further in depth. He could probably do a 50-minute video on that, 2-hour video on that. But I caught something in there that you mentioned. This was in July 2021. You were talking about the way that Russia was, assembling their military forces and moving their equipment. And I didn't hear you say, hey, it looks like they're doing it again. Looks like they're going to invade Ukraine. But you kind of alluded to it. I mean, is it safe to say that you predicted this in July 2021 on video?
I mean, we saw it. We all saw it. I'm not going to take any specific credit for this.
Yeah.
Take a look at Jeffrey Lewis, out of CNS in Monterey. There were lots of people in the OSINT community that were just watching. The Russians weren't trying to hide it.
Right.
And there was no way for them to hide it. Right. That's what this proliferation of commercial remote sensing has created, a new global transparency. So it was all there for the world to see. I was just saying, we've seen this before and we're seeing it again. And it was relatively clear that it was a lot more than posturing, right? And that goes to, I think I may have mentioned in that video, when you start to see, what was one of the key indicators that the OSINT people were talking about. When you start seeing blood supplies shipped to the front lines, right? When you see support units that are very specialized, like water purification units or mortuary units. When you see those types of things moving towards the front, it's not just an exercise, and it's not just some chest thumping, but it is almost unambiguous preparation for an invasion. In that case.
I was trying to give you credit for predicting it, Keith, but let's just say at least you're on video saying it, so that's good.